Today we're going to be talking about how to solve multi-step inequalities. So this is our example. Solve negative 11y minus 13 is greater than 42. Graph the solution on a number line. So solving these are just like solving regular equations. We just have to remember those special rules that apply to inequalities. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to write this a little bit underneath here so that we have some space to solve. Negative 11y minus 13 is greater than 42. So just like when we're solving equations, we start with addition and subtraction. So I'm going to add 13 to both sides because this way I can get rid of this negative 13. So I'm going to add 13 to both sides here. Can cross this out because they'll cancel out. And then I'm going to rewrite what's left. So I have negative 11y, 42 plus 13 gives me 55. And when we're just adding and subtracting, the sign will stay the same. So this inequality sign will not change because addition and subtraction doesn't change anything. The next thing that we're going to do is we need to get rid of this negative 11y. So to get rid of the negative 11, we have to use division on both sides. So I'm going to divide by negative 11. So I have y by itself now. And 55 divided by negative 11 is negative 5. But for this one, now we have to think about our special rule. When it comes to inequalities, when we have these signs right here, if we are dividing or multiplying, in this case we're just dividing, but if we were multiplying, the rule would be the same. If we are dividing by a negative number, then we need to switch the sign. So we divided by negative 11. That means that this inequality symbol needs to switch directions. And this would be our final answer. Now we have y by itself. So make sure that you always remember this special rule when it comes to inequalities, because this is the one difference from just solving equations normally. So this is our answer right here. Y is less than negative 5. Now we just need to graph this on the number line. So we draw a circle at negative 5. It's an open circle because this is a regular inequality, right? If it was less than or equal to, we would fill it in, but it's a regular one, so we just open circle. And then the direction that this is going, this has to go to the left because we want numbers less than negative 5. So our arrow is going to be pointing to the left. Remember, you can always use the trick where if the symbol is pointing this direction, you can point the arrow in the same direction. Alright, let's take a look at one last example. For this one, we want to solve 2a plus 15 is less than 21. We're not going to graph this one, we're just going to solve it. So I'm going to start again with the addition and subtraction first. We need to do minus 15 because we have to do the opposite. So minus 15 both sides. Now we're left with 2a on this side. And 21 minus 15 is positive 6. Okay, remember, addition, subtraction doesn't change anything about the sign, so this is still going to be the same. And then we need to divide by 2 on both sides to get rid of this. Okay, divide by 2 on both sides, so we're just left with a by itself. 6 divided by 2 is 3. And because this was a positive number, I don't change anything about the direction of this sign. Our rule only applies if we're dividing by some sort of negative number here. Since this is a positive 2, it doesn't change anything about the sign. This will stay the same. So our final answer for this example is a is less than 3. So remember, unless we are dividing or multiplying by a negative number, we don't change the inequality sign. This special rule only applies if it's a negative number that we're dividing. Alright, so now that we've seen some examples, I want you to pause the video. Once you are finished solving both these problems, number 1 and number 2, you can resume the video and see the answers. So go ahead and pause and practice. Alright, hopefully we've had some time to solve. I'm going to go ahead and show you how we solve these. So for the first one, we're going to add 1 to both sides. We're left with 5b greater than or equal to negative 10. And then we're going to divide by 5 on both sides. We're dividing by a positive number. Ignore the fact that this has a negative sign over here. We're focused only on the number we're dividing on both sides. So because this is positive, we don't change anything about the sign. So your final answer should be b is greater than or equal to negative 2. Okay, for the second one right here, we're going to start by subtracting 6 on both sides. So we have negative a less than or equal to 5 minus 6 is negative 1. And remember, anytime you have a variable that has a minus sign, like this one, negative a, you can imagine it as negative 1 in front. So I'm just going to write it out so that we can see this here. Remember, it's always the same thing as having a negative 1. So you can divide negative 1 on both sides so that we'll get a by itself. We can't leave it like this where it's negative a. You have to have a by itself. So once we divide it so that a is by itself, now negative 1 divided by negative 1 is actually positive 1. And we need to change the sign. Okay? Because this was a negative number that we're dividing by, this needs to change directions. So your inequality sign should now be greater than or equal to. And this will be our final answer for number 2. So go ahead and rewatch the video if you feel like you need more explanation. And then be prepared to solve this in class.